immigrating from the Philippines. And the great city of San Jose was my home before I got married and moved to San Mateo County. And so I am very grateful to Robert Pesich for inviting me to read tonight, and to Poetry Center San Jose and Work San Jose for their support. I'd like to begin with my inaugural poem. I read it when I was appointed Poet Laureate, and I started my term in 2019. Poetry, please. And when we speak, let it be said that nothing is lost in translation, that our words are true and tenable, that we understand the meaning of sea, the Ohlone word for water, which is you. The Ohlone knew this. They were first of this county, born of sea water and woven reeds, to salt marshes and pickle weeds, and salt water silvered by smelt. They fared on abalone and blue elderberry, western chokecherry, periwinkle, oaks, all flourishing, grace-filled, transitory. If I were a weaver, I would gift you a basket made of sandbar, willow, and tule, bright as cinnabar. But I can only write this poem, a tributary, to carry the weight of water as it flows and hefts the meaning of you, giver and taker, and everything that I knew. I wrote these next two poems to honor the journey of the many immigrants who came before me. A short history of journey. The fault, dear Arcturus, is not in your star. I'm afraid we misread the swells like explorers mistaking one continent for another. Columbus stretched out Asia eastward until Japan almost kissed the Azores. The Chinese treasure fleet had been mothballed long before Magellan set to sea. In other words, they were imprecise and they perished. Behold the flight of birds on rarefied air, from breeding ground to wintering ground. Behold intention and its skin precision. Be that as it may, we were always meant for motion. See how the Silk Road was paved with horses' bones, and more than smuggled silkworm, it brought sugar, silver, paper, utter world changer. See how the spice trade flourished, shoring up an empire, its galleons, implacable bearers of a slave trade from Manila to Acapulco. The world got its cinnamon, its cocoa, its cassia and cardamom, its lapis lazuli and its ballast ruby, ancient and sapphire veined. We got wanderlust. And the bravest of us looked up and remembered everything. The fixed star, the dippers, the king, the queen, the bear keeper, rubescent and fourth brightest in all the night sky, dearest. Remembered also the cardinal of old fields and every roadside, brilliantly blue and sometimes true, in the same night sky, roaming its way home. Dust. Sometimes we're like monsoon winds shifting east of where home is. Sometimes we're like tea leaves, heavenly and unfurling in agony. This is how we shape the earth. Dust up the springs and autumns, see where it rained, which map bore our shade, and which palace to place above us, where our majesty raised a dust. The next poem is about human ecology, climate change, and regrowth. It will be included in California Fire and Water, a climate crisis anthology edited by Molly Fisk and forthcoming in the spring. Fireborn. I once went wild over repurposed things. Tweeds, beads, driftwood, silvery wormwood got worked into frames, footgear, chandeliers. My favorite, though, is a floor lamp from a limb trimmed from an old manzanita, the color of burnished red pear. Wild child of the last wildfire, evergreen and unsparing, our gratitude for the little apples and the many equally wild and resolute things that fed on them. That charm of hummingbirds, that grist of bees, that flutter of butterflies. You were the kindling and the offering, the time-worn prayer above the movement of air. These next two poems are part of my postcard poems series where I pay homage to each of the cities or communities that make up San Mateo County. The first is about North Fair Oaks, a census-designated place adjacent to Redwood City, Menlo Park, and Atherton, known locally as Little Mexico. It is only one of 3 cities on the peninsula with majority Hispanic population. And the second poem is about the grace and fragility of our coastal ecosystems. Census for a New Decade. In North Fair Oaks, hay un familiar que vino de la tierra de las mariposas. There is a family from the land of the butterflies. Beekeepers who speak of 20 million monarchs oranging a forest in midwinter as stingless bees cluster and flex wings, overwintering where they're stored citrusy honey. In the family's new home in the avenues, La Abuela prunes a young oak once in late winter. Tuesday nights, she walks to the brightly colored torta shop on Middlefield Road. And Sundays after church, she takes her family to the park. On Census Day, there will be no mention of her history with the monarchs and the bees, or her love of torta. Only that she is female, age 54, and Hispanic. Originally from Michoacan, la inquilina de una casa on 5,000 square feet of land. Legal guardian of her 2 grandchildren, a girl 10 and a boy 8. On Census Day, she will be counted with the dignity of the uninvisible, head of her household, caregiver, breadwinner, grandmother. No eres lo que logras, eres lo que superas, she says, and her voice carries. When she calls out, someone hears. And in North Fair Oaks, there is a park that is shaped like a new decade. The last phrase, no eres lo que logras, eres lo que superas, is a saying which means you are not what you achieve, you are what you overcome. In Half Moon Bay, there are all these halves at the edge of the sea, like half a heart of shore, briefly cradling a sea star that has bravely lost its arms. When its stone coral mouth is already drained of seawater, its spine of honeycombed lime would be the last to go. At low tide, the feisty and starry flounder leaves tracks in pursuit of ghost shrimp, while the shy and snowy plover wades in and out of waves, not playing but foraging for sandhoppers. Its fortune tied with the tides like sand and moonshine. But count on the bread to still rise on century-old bricks 6 days a week, like goodwill or good fortune inside a wave. This next poem is about the Declaration of Independence and what it means to me as an immigrant, as a product of chain migration, And as someone who grew up during martial law, under one of the most brutal and longest running dictatorships in the world. There are no kings in America. We are not that kind of country. We are sanctuary for the hungry, the homeless, the huddled, held together by an idea our immigrant fathers believed in. Rendered, it meant independence. Pursued, it kindled war, ordnance, a fighting chance. 40,000 musket balls by themselves did not shape the boundaries in which we map our days. To draw our borders, we needed more than fire cakes, more than a pound of meat with bone and gristle, or saltfish and a gill of bees. We needed the faith and grit of people who were not yet Americans. To be an American is to recognize the sacrifice of the widow and the orphan. It is to understand the weft of tent cities expecting caravans, and the heft of a child in a camp not meant for children, or sitting before a judge awaiting judgment. What do we say to the native whose lands we now inhabit? What do we say to our immigrant fathers who held certain truths to be self-evident? Do we now still pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor? There are no kings in America, only gilded men we can topple again and again.